Hello, I'm Siddharth Gaur from Tata Power and I welcome you all to our Ethics Week special, a chat with Shantanu Naidu. Shantanu was born in 1993, holds an MBA degree from prestigious Cornell University. He is an entrepreneur, an engineer, social media influencer, author, and above all, associate of our beloved Chairman Emeritus, Mr Ratan Tata. Hello Shantanu, a very warm welcome to you from Tata Power family.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here and I look forward to this conversation.
And thank you very much for humbly accepting our invitation to be a part of Ethics Week celebrations.
My pleasure.
Let me begin the interaction by asking you the question that all of us have in our minds. How did your love for dogs grow over the years and made you connect with Mr. Tata?
I think a large attribute of that goes to my mother. It's not just dogs, but she's kept me sensitized to all living beings in general, which was not always easy given the culture that dogs are harmful or animals in general, stray animals are harmful. But she sort of ingrained that in me. So I wouldn't say that it was something that was specifically sat down and taught as much as I saw my parents imbibe these values. So over time, I think I used to bring home so many dogs and puppies, almost 16, 17, and I was made to put them back on the street every single time. But one time I got through and we adopted a stray dog, and that was sort of the peak of when my love for dogs grew. When I was in my engineering days, I used to drive back from my first job at Tata Elxsi as a junior design engineer, and I used to see a lot of dogs getting killed on the street. Initially, I thought that it was just a one-off incident, but it turned out it was a very big pattern. And it was just very disheartening and heartbreaking to see the dogs being run over and over again. So because I had access to engineering materials and automotive materials, we designed a reflective collar for dogs,
Right.
which today goes under motorpaws. That also led me to overlap my paths with Mr. Tata, because he, being a dog lover himself, caught wind of this news through Tata newsletters and such, and eventually it led to us meeting and him supporting motorpaws. So that cross path led to us nationalizing motorpaws and our dog initiatives, which include feeding, collaring the dogs, and animal rescues. So I think it's just been growing and growing, all thanks to Mr. Tata, and Tata Group will always have a big part to play with it, because those were the days during Tata Elxsi time on the night shift where it all began.
Wonderful. Our viewers would also like to know, what would a day in the life of Shantanu typically be like? And also tell us something about his childhood.
So I wish my days were typical, but they're absolutely not. Each day is different, which is why I love my job. I cannot remember the time when there were 2 days that were similar. And I really enjoy that part, because every day is filled with a set of challenges and opportunities which I've never been exposed to before. Usually in a job, you sort of learn over 6 months or 1 year the things that you need to do repetitively. But it seems that here, the moment you learn something and get comfortable, then you are thrown into the pond again and you have to learn to swim, which is both fearful and interesting. But I just like to dive in headfirst and take on those as they come. And I think Mr. Tata has a big role to play in making me comfortable and ensuring that I can deliver on those, so I don't feel lost or isolated. And I have wonderful colleagues to help me do just that. As far as my childhood goes, I think I've had a pretty happy childhood. I had a big set of friends where I used to live. My school, not so much. I didn't have a good popularity index or anything like that, so I don't have very fond school memories. But I would say my childhood was pretty fond, if I might use that word. So, yeah, I think that answers that.
We would like to know something about your book, I Came Upon a Lighthouse. It's becoming a rage and people are loving it. So
Yeah.
if you can throw some light on the book, the title and the book, the contents of the book.
Sure. So the whole reason I wrote this book is because when people started to find out about where I work and how I got there, a lot of millennials, Gen Z, and younger became very inquisitive about how I landed up there and the kind of knowledge that I get exposed to. And initially, I used to think, okay, it's flattery, I can understand, because people used to constantly throw comments at me, such as, we would do anything to be in your shoes. And initially, I took those as just comments, but I realized that they actually mean it. They actually wish to know what it is like to be in my shoes. And if I have been put as a millennial in such close proximity to Mr. Tata, it would be a little bit selfish to keep it all to myself. So then I started penning down all journal entries. My mom used to give me these small red diaries, and I used to keep filling those with the happenings of the day, every single day, and all my interactions and all my incidents and learnings. And I didn't have any idea that it was going to be a book back then. But eventually the diaries became 3 diaries, 5 diaries, 10 diaries, and then I started looking at those and I thought this is the right time to share this with the world. It was a very big anxiety-filled process because it is literally my life laid out to bear for anyone to comment on and judge. And I was very fearful when the book release came close, but once it went out, I have not heard a single negative comment. And it has taken me by delightful surprise, because it turns out that people didn't just want to know about Mr. Tata, they took away a lot of lessons that they related to on a millennial level in terms of education, higher education, the stresses that an Indian student faces, which was a very delightful surprise for me. And I'm glad that has happened. It still takes me time to process that I have written a book, because all I did was just convert the diaries into a narrative. But it's doing very well, and I'm happy about it, and happy about the fact that people feel that they now know Mr. Tata a little bit better, especially on the human side. Because when we idolize someone, especially in India, we are so starstruck that we forget to humanize them. And that was my attempt in this book.
I perfectly agree with you. I believe it's a treasure trove of inspiring anecdotes.
Thank you.
So all the best to you for the book.
Thank you so much.
My next question is also related to your book. You have written in your book about your experiences of watching the actions and principles of Mr. Tata, your millennial Dumbledore, in day-to-day life. For example, when you go out for a haircut or while making big business decisions. So could you please elaborate on these experiences?
Yeah, I think the experiences are so vast that it would be tough to choose and pick, and the book covers pretty much everything, but I can point out 2 values that sort of penetrate all his actions, which I have noticed as a pattern, recurring pattern. And to everyone who keeps asking me in other contexts, we want to be like Mr. Tata, these 2 are solid pointers to do just that, apart from being a good businessman. So one thing is, when you're doing acts of kindness, you should do it for people who can do nothing for you. So you will always see him doing things for people who can do nothing for him, who cannot return that in any form of favor. And oftentimes when we are involved in acts of kindness, we sort of forget that principle, that the acts of kindness usually shouldn't have an expectation of any return. And you will see him do that day in and day out. He will just help someone and forget about it, and it will never occur to him again. And the second one, I think, would be the gravity of promises. So one very important thing to Mr. Tata is keeping his word or keeping his promise. And there's just no circumstance where I have seen him go back on that. So however difficult it becomes for him because of changing circumstances to keep a particular promise, he will always deliver because he's given his word. And I think that's a very translatable lesson, which I try my best to follow, but I'll be honest, it's very challenging. But for him, it comes with such ease because he's just practiced it all his life. So I think these 2 sort of go across all the experiences I've had with him, which of course the book covers.
Wonderful. You are working very closely with Mr. Tata. He himself is a superhuman, as we all know. So what is it like to work beneath the lighthouse like him? If you can share some interesting anecdotes with our viewers.
So one thing I didn't figure out in the early part of my job was the fact that Mr. Tata is a walking, talking archive of all things Tata, all things business, and so many interactions. So, for example, when I used to suggest some things very excitedly, and he would not really go forward with some of those, I would be a little conflicted as to why that's happening, but it would be only a matter of time before it became very clear why he took a decision which he had thought about 10 steps forward, which is something that I wouldn't have been able to do. But it's not very much in the face, and he won't really come and say to you on your face that this is the reason why you shouldn't do this, or this is the reason. He will just calmly and subtly tell you, let's not go this way, let's go that way. And it is a matter of time before it becomes very clear as things unfold why he went that particular way. And then you begin to understand the depth of the knowledge and history and just business acumen that he has. And to be exposed to that day on day is a true privilege. So I think every single day, if you're alert enough, you get to learn these things. But he doesn't teach you in a sit down and I'll tell you 10 things that you should do it kind of way. It's more observe and learn kind of way. So if you're inattentive or if you're not observant, then you will miss out on a lot of opportunities of learning things that he's doing in daily life. So to be constantly on your toes around him and while working under him, and to be constantly observing why is it that he's taking particular minuscule actions has a lot of learnings in there.
One. Under Tata Power 2.0 vision, we are strengthening our credentials in the B2C space. Today, we are catering to around 12 million customers across India. And we have a significant number of young employees like you who are driving the organization progress. So what's your message to our young power victors who are carrying forward the ethical legacy?
Let me just start by saying I love this question. I've been waiting for someone to ask me this throughout my time at the Tatas. But I think saying something like ethical advice would be a little bit, or ethical legacy would be a little bit redundant when it comes to the Tata Group, because the Tata Group's biggest legacy is, in fact, its ethics. And we have been known for more than 100 years to create prosperity rather than become prosperous. And we stand for that very strongly. That is the foundation of the group. And as a 5th generation Tata employee, I have seen that penetrate through every generation. And I remember when I was junior design engineer, very, very junior level, and the reason I used to do night shifts is because the junior people do it. But when I used to go to the petrol station and fill gas, or when I used to be in a public place and the Tata emblem used to be on my shirt, you can instantly see the demeanor of people changing towards you. Because when you mention that you're a Tata employee, automatically the people assume that you have a higher moral compass, you have a strong set of ethics, and you're generally a good person as compared to any ordinary individual. And I think that is a very strong reputation that we continue to carry today. But my message to the young individuals would be, it is sort of our responsibility to start living up to that. I am confident they are already doing it, but keeping that ethical legacy as a North Star, a guiding star, and remembering that people will always respect you and see you differently in a different light, and living up to that responsibility in your actions in the group and outside the group, even when nobody's watching. I think that would be my best advice, because that's what connects the entire group, I think.
I love the phrase which you've used, that keep ethics as your North Star. So probably I believe our young power victors would surely relate to it very well.
I hope so.
Last but not the least, I would not let you go of the chance of getting some author signed books.
My pleasure.
And we will surely share this with the winners of our ethics competition. So I would request you to please sign a couple of copies for us. The more copies we will courier to you. Yeah.
Thank you. Still can't get used to doing this.
Thank you so much, Shantanu.
My pleasure.
Our readers, our employees would love to read the signed copies. To all our viewers, I would like to add that this is a privilege for us to be a part of Tata Power family, which is built on moral values and ethics, and now is our responsibility to follow the Tata Code of Conduct and the ethical standards of Tata Group and take the legacy forward. Happy Founders Day to all.